What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr Wargames, and today I'm bringing you the test stand video for the Swordsoul super heavy profile that I showed you all the other day. So massive shout out to the creator Mitchell, who actually got top 32 at UK Nationals with this deck. It has a very competitive edge, utilising the main meta of super heavy Samurai along with the underdog meta of Swordsoul. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you do not miss out on any more upcoming content. After a very decent shuffle and a good old cut, we'll do 2 test stands going first, 2 test stands going second, starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, well apart from Tunneler, we actually have a really good hand. So yes, you're going to be running into Draw and Lock, but that just is part and part of it. But we're going to start off with the bike. So we're going to use bike and we're going to go straight into Wakashi. Now keep in mind, you want to keep the spells and traps out of the graveyard until you've done all of your super heavy Samurai plays, unless you've got a guaranteed way to banish it. So in this scenario, you could technically go search out Tire, normal Tire's effect, banish the emergence, and off you go. But you need to maintain your normal for the super heavy Samurai cards. So after this, obviously what you want to do is you want to scale the Wakashi. You're going to use the Wakashi effect to special summon itself and put Benkei into the scale. You could ultimately, if you wanted to, activate Emergence, search out Tire to banish this, and then you use Tire as the non-tuner to go with the Wakashi. So it's entirely up to you on the route of play, which is why it's quite nice. Like if your opponent stops this or stops your Benkei and they're like, ha, that's it, you can't do anything, well you just go, okay, cool, Emergence, and I'll play Swordsoul instead. So we're going to scale the Benkei, you're going to use Benkei's effect, and this is where you're going to just gain insane resource. So we're going to go for the Soul Piercer. Now, if you're desperately worried about desperately worried about Nibiru, then you do obviously have the ability to go into Tire, or you can go through Soul Piercer, entirely up to you on that one. And that's going to allow you to kind of go into the Baron. We're going to get greedy on this one because we're going to be able to set up a pretty decent board before we get into Nibiru territory anyway. So you're going to normal summon the Soul Piercer, you're going to sync the Soul Piercer with the Wakashi, and you're going to go into your third summon being your Entrainment. So then, of course, you're going to go Chain Link 1, Soul Piercer, Chain Link 2, Entrainment. Entrainment will special summon the Wakashi from the extra deck. Soul Piercer will search you out the Soul Peacemaker. If you just want a free extender just to make a rank 4 because you're desperate to get into Fiorankin Regulus, then you can go boosters, summon the boosters off of the Wakashi and go from there. So we're going to get greedy, like I said, so we're going to go for the Soul Peacemaker. Technically, we've opened up like the 2-card combo that's going to get us an insane board and extras. So this is going to be really nice to kind of show you how far you can push this deck. So then you're going to equip the Soul Peacemaker to the Wakashi. You're going to use the effect, destroying that, destroying the Wakashi, and special summoning from the deck the Scales. Now it does suck a little bit if you open up the Scales, but then like I said, instead of going for the Soul Peacemaker, you go for the Gaia Booster instead, and that will still give you a very good end board. So you go into Scales, Scales will then revive the Soul Piercer. You're then going to link these two together, and we're going to go into your Ballista. Ballista's effect will then search you out the box. Now, you obviously go Chain Link 1, Soul Piercer, Chain Link 2, Ballista, because you've already got the Tunneler. Like the box is just an additional search. If you wanted to, you could go straight into the Cleforhenius, and in doing so, you then Pendulum summon them out. But again, entirely up to you. So we're going to search out the box, wherever it may be. There we go. And then for the Soul Piercer, we're going to go for the Wakashi to complete our Scales. So at this point, as you saw, we technically, when we got to a point where we had Entrainment plus Piercer plus your Scales, that's when you're at your 5th summon. So even if your opponent Nibiru's you, you still get the Wakashi off of the Soul Piercer, so you still complete your Scales, and then you just go full Pendulum and you can start using Emergence and everything else. So we get the box, we've got the Wakashi. You now want to activate the Emergence. This is going to give you your Tire. Now, obviously, if you've got another Swordsoul in the hand, which we do with Blackout, technically I could go for Moyi to get an additional draw. So we'll do exactly that. Then what you want to do here is you want to link these up just to unlock an additional zone. It doesn't matter, but it also unlocks a zone and gives you access to the Regulus. So you're going to link those two together, and you're going to go into your Genius. And then you're going to complete your Scales of the form of the Wakashi, and then Pendulum Summon. Now you can literally just go full hand, flat it all out if you want to, entirely up to you. So now you're going to pendulum summon. So you're going to go for, as long as one zone is used up for the Wakashi, everything else, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to go down with the box. We're going to go with the tunneler. And the one thing you've got to remember is if you go down with a Mo Yi, because Mo Yi, unlike Taya can be activated during the main phase, Mo Yi is on summon. So that's when you need to leave the zones free in order to get that level 4 tuner. So it does stop you getting the Ghost Ogre to the board, which would be kind of cool because you can actually sync it with the tunneler. But we're going to go in a different route anyway. So you summon down the Mo Yi. Mo Yi is going to reveal the blackout. This is then going to allow you to spawn her token. Keeping in mind, while that token is on the board, you are locked into synchros, but it's only while it's on the board. You've also then got to resolve the Genius effect, and the Genius is then going to give you the follow-up of Regulus. So again, even if your opponent decides to Nibiru you now, you still have the ability of ending the board with a Regulus as well. I know it's not as great, but you're still playing through certain points of when you're going to get hit. So now it's entirely up to you on what you want to synchro into. Keep in mind you've got 2 tuners right here. So you've got the ability to synchro for a 9. You've got the ability, once you get rid of this token, to link up. Now obviously you want to use Mo Yi because by using Mo Yi and the token, you're going to get a nice additional draw for the back of that as well. So you can go into Yugioh. You can go Chainlink 1, Yugioh, Chainlink 2, Mo Yi. So we're going to shuffle this up. So we get the random draw off of Mo Yi. Because you've already got Blackout, we're going to use the effect of Yugioh to search us out Long One, and that's just going to add us a level 10 to the end board as well, which is nuts. And then it's entirely up to you if you want to synchro with these two, giving you another level 8. Because you've got the Mo Yi in the graveyard, that can be a Dragite. If you want it to, it can also be a Berserker, and you've got the level 2 in the graveyard, so it can also be a Borreload Savage Dragon. So if you use Box plus the Wakashi, go into the Savage Dragon effect will let you equip the Ballista from the graveyard. You've then got the ability to go into a Long One. So Long One can discard the Blackout. It's up to you whether you want to keep the Blackout or not. Alternatively, you can, of course, start using the Regulus. But as soon as you use Regulus, you lock out all your zones, so you don't have an additional zone to get the Long One down. So prior to this, if you go Long One first and you want to sacrifice the Blackout for a stronger option, you get rid of that. You summon down the Long One spawns his own token. And then you've got the ability again, Synchro 9 if you want to. 9 out of 10, you're probably just going to go, cool, straight, thank you very much. Synchro into a 10, which is of course going to be Baron. You're then going to burn your opponent for an additional 1200. You've then got the ability to go, okay, cool, Regulus, target the Soul Piercer. And now, because of the ability to get into Baron, you can go one step further and go Baron to pop the Soul Piercer. Soul Piercer's effect, search you out, follow up for the next turn. So you can pretty much go for a free summon of the Soul Gaia. You can go for the Bike. And then if you don't already have a Bike in the graveyard, you can use that, but we already do because it's our first one. So your end board there is 2 hand traps in hand. And all you need to do technically, if you really, really, really wanted the draws, you could sacrifice the Regulus, which yes is an Omni-Negate, but you could sacrifice these, or even the Yugioh if you wanted to. So you could sacrifice any mixture of leaving up to a Link 4, as long as you use the Tunneler to get you into an Appaloosa. And then you'll use Tunneler's effect, banishing this, putting back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could technically put back the Entrainment as well if you wanted to. You can put all of these back because you don't actually mind drawing all of those or any of those. Shuffle up. Draw 2. Boom. Okay, Scales, Mo Yi, and then a free negate Appaloosa. So it's obviously always risk and reward, but at the end of the day, when you're passing to your opponent like this, you've got an Omni-Negate on Baron, you've got an Omni-Negate on Savage, you've got 3 monster effects on Appaloosa, you've got a monster negate off the Yugioh, and the best thing about the Yugioh, because the Blackout's already in there, is if you Yugioh banish that, Blackout's then going to spawn a token, so that even the next turn, when you just want to normal summon Mo Yi, if you don't have a Swordsoul card in hand, doesn't matter. Still Synchro, you've got 3 zones left to Pendulum Summon with as well. Pendulum Summon out your Scales, and just keep rebuilding. Like, it's absolutely insane when your board is complete like this. One thing that you could also consider as well, because you're building boards like this and you want to be as defensive as possible, is you could very easily consider the level 12. The level 12 Synchro. The brand new Super Heavy Samurai monster as well. Always forget his name. But that could really help you out as well, depending on the route you go. Like, if you do more Swordsoul and burn your entire hand out, that might be a better option for you. Anyway, that was an insanely powerful hand, and that was with obviously the main starters. The idea is that with your opening hand of 5, if you get either Bike or Wakashi, so that's 1 of 6, and then either you get the 1 card which is Emergence, which is a 1 of 3, or you get any Swordsoul plus any worm, or technically any Swordsoul card plus any worm. That will then give you the ability of Tire, that will give you the ability of Long One, and it can also give you the ability of Moyi as well. So after another decent shuffle, and another good old cut, our second test hand going first will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, we've pretty much got the exact same combo again. So, I mean, I'll play it out just so you can kind of see consistency. Again, if you're really, really, really worried about a Baron, you can do it a different way as well. But you'll go Motorbike, Bike's going to go into Wakashi, scale Wakashi, summon the Wakashi, search out or scale up the Benkei. There we go. Benkei for Piercer. This is the only issue without having Scarecrow. Like with Scarecrow, you didn't need to sack up your normal as much. But unfortunately you do now. So your normal summon the Piercer, you're going to sync these two together, Entrainment, summon out, Piercer's obviously going to search. You've already got your Soul Peacemaker, so this is where you're going to get an additional free extender in the form of the Gaia booster, purely because, you know, ultimately you could get into, if you're worried that later on down the line you're going to be stuck a little bit, then I would probably advise you get to your Wakashi early, because then it means that if your opponent does stop you, you can still complete your scales and you can still make your plays. You then equip the Soul Peacemaker. Soul Peacemaker destroys, summons out Scales. Scales brings back the Piercer. You can then, again, I'll show you without using the entrainment this time as well. It doesn't really matter, like I said, because you just end up scaling into the same thing. Ballista, Ballista's effect, and Pierce's effect. Piercer now gets you the Gaia booster. You get Box. You get Tunneler. You then link these two together, sets up your Savage Dragon, and also sets up your Genius. You've then got the ability to Emergence. You can go for Moyi again. This time I'm actually going to go for Tire instead, rather than that random draw. Where are you? There we go. Tire. Scale the Wakashi, and you're pretty much full ready to go. So this is the difference now. You can Pendulum Summon, so you go with Tire, Tunneler, Box. Don't need to do the booster. You can save that and go for your Wakashi. There we go, that way around. Now, unlike Moyi, this doesn't trigger on summon, so I can actually hold back the token and hold back the space. Trigger the Genius. The Genius is then going to allow you to search out your Regulus. Regulus just to protect anything going forward. Summons itself down and equips with the Piercer. Now at this point it's entirely up to you. This is when you can also get into a 10 as well. So if you actually held back the Regulus, now this is where it's going to get spicy, is you can actually use Tire's effect to banish the Emergence from the graveyard, spawning the token. On resolution, you can then use Emergence to adapt the level of token to make it a level 5. Now the reason you adapt the token and not the Tire is because Yugioh needs a worm non-tuner. So what you have here is you've got 2 level 5s, so you can actually sync the token plus the Tunneler and get yourself into a Baron. You then have the ability of using Tire plus the Wakashi to get you into your Yugioh. And then off the back of that, you can then use Yugioh's effect and Tire's effect. So Tire's going to send Moyi, so you've got a water in the graveyard should you want to go for Dragite. Yugioh is of course going to search out the long one again. There we go. You then have the ability of going Regulus, equipped with Soul Piercer. Baron pops Soul Piercer, search out, follow up for the next turn. So you can go for Bike, or you can go directly for a Wakashi. Now, the only thing left over now is you've got the Box left over. And that's probably where you might want to have kept the Wakashi on the board so that you could bring out the Soul Gaia first. And then your board can still look like this. And then what you can do here is you can link all of these together and go into the Appaloosa. So you've now got a 3 negate Appaloosa, you've got your Yugioh, you've got your Baron, you've got your Regulus. And then if you want to, you still have the long one. And this time, long one ditching the blackout, spawning a token, sync these together, burn your opponent for 12, and go straight into a long one. So you've then got your ability to burn your opponent for another, technically 2400. You've still got the hand trap, and if that wasn't enough, you still have the ability, even though you've dodged Savage this time, you actually have the ability of, wherever it may be, where's Tunneler? There we go. Tunneler's effect, you can put back 1, 2, 3, actually not box, what am I talking about? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Technically, you can probably put these two back instead of the piercer and the scales. It's entirely up to you on which ones you want to put back. The idea would be is that you draw 2 more cards. Obviously inconsequential because I haven't put the right ones back yet. But just to kind of show you, you then get 2 additional cards. You recycle your extra deck. You've still got whatever you've got left on the board plus all of this for your opponent to deal with, which is absolutely insane in the membrane. So that was it for going first. Now let's see how good the deck is at breaking boards. Now, breaking boards is going to be a little bit different with this deck because it doesn't really have a huge amount of like direct board breakers. What it actually focuses on more is just a huge amount of gas to kind of play through different forms of interruption that your opponent may or may not be setting up, which I think is really kind of cool. So, after another decent shuffle and a good old cut, we'll now start going second, starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we've got long one, we've got Ecclesia, we've got Emergence. We're pretty much going to go Swordsoul heavy on this one. But the best thing about this is we can do all of this without our normal summon. So as soon as we use the Soul Piercer as fodder for anything, we then unlock all of our Swordsoul Super Heavy Samurai players, which is pretty mad. So we'll start off with Ecclesia, special summon this down because our opponent's going to control monsters. Use Ecclesia's effect, going to get us straight into a Moyi or a Tyre. To be totally honest, I'm going to go for Moyi because, you know, I love that random draw. I'm going to go in for Moyi. Moyi will then reveal Emergence. This will then spawn the Moyi token. You can then sync Moyi plus the token and go into Yugioh. Now, I always tend to go into Yugioh first if I'm playing with, if I use Moyi and the token, because it's 2 waters. Like the Baxia bounce of 1 isn't going to be that great for me, whereas I still have the Emergence bounce of 1 as well. So, chaining 1 Yugioh, chaining 2 Moyi. Moyi will shuffle up. Still haven't conducted normal as well, keep that in mind. Draw 1. Oh, okay. And then the search of the Yugioh. Again, we've pretty much got everything we need. So I can actually search or send. Now, if I want the additional tuner, I can actually banish the blackout directly from deck, or I can hold it for follow-up the next turn. So, there we go. We'll take that. If I feel that I need a negate, I could ultimately use the negate on that as well. So our hand's still pretty cracked, because then we can still use the ability of long one, discarding the Emergence, summoning it down, spawning a token. You can then sync these off. Again, going into a level 10. Now, it depends on what 10 you feel you need, whether you want to be going aggressive with Sovereign or if you want to go defensive with Baron. That will then burn your opponent for 1200. Baron can then pop 1 card our opponent controls. And this is probably where I actually, looking back on hindsight, it's probably where you want to banish the blackout directly from the deck to spawn the token. Because then it means, now that I haven't conducted my normal, I can normal summon the Soul Piercer. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to get into the Wakashi. The Wakashi is not going to give me everything I need, but the Benkei can actually do it for me already. So if I control if I control a Super Heavy Samurai monster, which I do, I get to add a Soul monster from my deck to my hand. Now, keeping in mind, that doesn't have the effect that I need to have no spells in the graveyard. So at the moment, I do have the spell of Emergence, so I do need to play around it a little bit differently. So let's have a look to see what we've got. Tribute your card monster, discuss special move. Target one for while this quick card to a monster your opponent control cannot attack it. Tribute this monster you control. Try to remember the exact ones that need me to have no spells in the graveyard. So Bike, I'm pretty sure it's Bike and Wakashi are the 2 that say you have to have no spells in the graveyard. Just double check Gaia Booster. The equivalent was if you have no spells and traps in your graveyard and it's critical monster. Okay, so the Soul Piercer isn't going to do it for me, but the Soul Peacemaker I'm pretty sure does. Yeah, so the Soul Peacemaker doesn't have that clause, so that's probably the best one to be getting off of the Benkei. So the only way that you can kind of rectify this or get this sorted is by getting tied to the board, and that's very easy to do. So you activate the Soul Peacemaker, you equip to the Soul Piercer, you get rid of this, and then get into your scales. So you can transfer to almost if you're normal special summon entire level, then once graveyard special summon it defense position. Yeah, so I can still use scales. Scales brings back Samurai. Like usually you don't even worry about considering having spells and traps in the graveyard. Obviously resolve this as well to get you the Wakashi. That's just going to complete your Pendulum Scales, which is why you go for it. And then you've got the ability to synchro this off again. This can go into an 8. Where are you? What 8 have we got that needs a non-tuner? Berserker's probably the most aggressive. I can't go back because he needs a non-tuner worm. So we'll go into Draco Berserker. I mean, ultimately I could Link instead. That might be more beneficial for me. But I need to get rid of that token first. Disappointed. Oh well. So you do it like this. You still get the search of a Soul Piercer. I still need to have no spells in my graveyard. That's the big issue. Not Wakashi. What am I looking for? I want Gaia Booster. And as soon as I activate this Emergence, I'm already going to put another spell in the graveyard. Not ideal. Oh well. I still got plays to make though. That's what's mad. Is that I can still scale this, and then I've got a tuner here. So even if I just Pendulum Summon 1, which is a bit of a waste, I can still do it. So Pendulum Summon the 1, sync these two together, and again give me another generic 8. I've already got the Moyi in the graveyard, so there's the Dragite. I don't have Bike in the grave though, do I? Don't have any level 2 or lower tuners. No, okay. So, if only I had a monster in the extra deck. No, I think the best thing I can go into is a Dragite. But even then, that's still pretty cool. Like I've got Baron, Berserker, Yugioh, Dragite. So this is obviously going to be able to attack and clear off 2 of my opponent's monsters. This is going to attack as well. The only thing I'm missing that I would have liked to have gone into, which I might have taken the wrong step around, is go into a Baxia, because then a Baxia would have spun some cards as well. Anyway, I am learning this deck just as much as you. This is a weird combination. There's so many little like loopholes you need to remember. Specifically like making sure you've got no spells and traps in the graveyard for some of your super heavy effects. Not all of them, just some. But it's still kind of cool. Like, it started off in the previous kind of like test hands. You saw me start off with super heavies, and this one was like, let's start off with Swordsoul instead, and how you can go. So that's kind of cool. So we'll cut this up, and we'll go for our final test hand. Going second will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we definitely ashed our opponent. Now let's show you what happens if you don't have Tire. Well, luckily we do have the abilities of the rest of the Sword Souls. So as long as we maintain no cards in the spell and trap zone, you can actually go for the Bike. The Bike will search you out Wakashi. And then of course you can Wakashi, Scale, Benkei. Now obviously keep in mind you want to make sure you don't put more monsters on the board than your opponent, because then by the time you do that, your Ecclesia is dead. Benkei will obviously search us out our Piercer. Does it have to be a Piercer? I don't think it does actually. Let's see what happens if I go for the Gaia Booster instead. Does it make much of a difference? I mean, I don't want to... No, okay, let's do it a different way. Let's just... Why am I trying to rewrite the book? Let's just keep it simple, shall we? So, Soul Piercer, and the reason you do that is you still need a worm in the graveyard if you're going Tire. So in this one, you're actually just going to go Special Ecclesia, tag this out, go into Moyi, Moyi, reveal Moyi, creative on that one. Still maintained a normal summon, which is absolutely fine. So you reveal Moyi in the hand, spawn a token, synchro these two. I mean, if you're worried, you can actually just go into a Axel. So what are we on? 1, 2, 3... 4, and then 5 will be the Bike. So if I want to nib you now, now's their chance to do it, and you still have your normal summon, so keep that in mind. Obviously you've got the ability of Moyi to draw a card. You're then going to sync these two together, and you're going to go into your Baron. and just gives you your protection for the rest of your plays. There we go, so we've got that. Still maintain a normal, so you can still normal the piercer. You can then synchro these two together and go into train. Train summons this, also summons off of Soul Piercer searches. Soul Piercer gets me Peacemaker. Peacemaker equipped to Wakashi. Destroy these. Get Scales. Wherever Scales may be. There we go. Scales. Scales revive Piercer. And then you want to link two of these together. Doesn't matter which two, as long as you use Soul Piercer. Get into Ballista. Obviously, if there's a threat on the board, you use Baron to pop it and then bait out the negate. But other than that, Ballista and Piercer. So Ballista, Piercer will get you Wakashi. We'll get Tunneler and we'll get Box. Then use these two to go into Genius. And then you've got the ability to scale the Wakashi. Pendulum Summon. 1, 2. Moyi is for the pure fact that I can actually get into Baxia, which is pretty funny. And 5. Now, obviously, the issue is we've only got one. We've got like one tuner, but it's not the end of the world. If you synchro these two together, this will get you into Baxia because we used a non-tuner worm. Woo! Target cards on field up to number of worm types. We can only target one, sadly, but it doesn't matter because you're going to spin one back. What does matter on the Baxia, which is really kind of cool, is it lets you target any card you control and one level 4 or lower monster in your graveyard. So you can actually pop the Wakashi and then bring back any level 4 or lower. So technically, I can bring back the Ecclesia by getting rid of this. This will then give me the ability to synchro again. So let's synchro these two together. I'm going to go for the generic behavior. I completely forgot Genius. So Genius should be searching out Regulus. Doi. So we search out Regulus. There we go. And then Regulus summons down. Regulus, equip, Piercer. If you haven't used Baron's effect, you can use Baron's effect now, but we don't really need to. And then you pretty much go in for game with what you've got here. Like, or if you want to get rid of the Baxia and you want to upgrade into a Link and get more draws, then obviously you go straight into an Appaloosa. 3 negate Appaloosa. You've also got the negate off the Genius as well. And you've got the ability to recycle your Earth Machines to draw more cards. So it's endless. I actually really like this. I think it's kind of cool. I still have the fear of opening up too much Swordsoul with like, well, I say too much Swordsoul. If you open up 2 Swordsoul, you're good to rock and roll. But the issue would be is if you open up the one-ofs that are your super heavies without the without Wakashi or bike access, and then the deck just kind of not falls apart, but it kind of goes, okay, cool, guess I'm doing like minimal through one hand trap pass kind of thing. Anyway, I hope this is kind of give you an insight into the deck, how it runs, how it operates. I really do like it. I think it's a kind of cool angle that the deck can really run now. And I think it's kind of a nice option for the deck. I'm not saying it's the best version, but I do think it's kind of cool considering that hopefully the super heavies have had a bit of dip in popularity. And because of the ban list, you can pick these up all relatively cheap and then go, cool, I'm going to have a bit of fun with my Swordsoul deck now. Just in case it gets stale, I can change it up and do something a little bit different. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.